Hi everyone, I'm Adina from Immigrant Finance School, and I'm here today with Edward, one of our recent students who's here to share his experience. So thank you so much for joining us, Edward, calling in from Singapore and sharing your story. So what was going on before you joined Immigrant Finance School?
Thank you, Adina. Before I joined immigrant finance, I was, I think, spending a lot of time just trying to find out what I could do before I got to the US. How to build my credit history, just trying to figure out which bank account to use and things like that. So pretty standard stuff. And one of the things that I learned very quickly was that a lot of the financial advice on the internet out there about the US is really meant for people who are in the US. They're not geared towards immigrants like me. So a lot of the advice didn't sort of work out because you lack certain paperwork or certain identity and things like that. So these were kind of frustrating to me as well because here I was trying to do some research and trying to help myself and my family out. But I realized that a lot of things didn't apply to immigrants like me. That was one of the big challenge I faced.
And how did you find Immigrant Finance?
That's a trick question because I don't remember how I found immigrant
That's
finance. It must have been, in one of these attempts when I was trying to find information specific to immigrants. I must have come across advertisement, or I must have stumbled upon the website of Immigrant Finance. And I thought it was a really interesting course because it was, one of the first times it was being offered, and it was being offered at a very affordable price, and it was very short. I think it was for 4 or 5 weeks. So I thought this would be the perfect opportunity to sort of have access to content that was specific to immigrants. Yeah.
And you talked a little bit about how you were looking for this type of information online, and it was difficult to find since most personal finance information is geared toward, in the US, geared toward Americans.
Mm.
So, how did that make you feel when you were searching before you found Immigrant Finance School and you couldn't find this resource?
Um, I guess you kind of feel very lost in that sense because half the time when you're reading information, you're asking yourself, is this actually relevant for me? Is this going to be useful to me? And a lot of times what we do is that we try to speak to people who are already in the US. So I tried to speak to, try to learn from friends who lived in the US before or are living in the US. And then you kind of wonder, some of the things that they tell you, it kind of works for you because kind of works for them because they're already in the US or they live in the US. A good example would be loans, right? When you share with them like you need to get a car, they would say things like, "Well, you should be able to get a loan from a credit union fairly easily." And then I realized that because I didn't have credit history, it would be very different. What kind of rates they're being published on the website. The kind of low rates that people had access to. It just wasn't sort of available to me. Even as something as small as say car insurance, a lot of times the forms will reject me because I didn't have a social security number yet.
Mhm.
And things like that. It kind of adds up. You realize that you kind of feel like the system is sort of blocking you or preventing you from getting access to all these kind of rates that are available to people who live there. Yeah.
Definitely. That
Yeah.
was our experience too that led us to create this course after my husband and I went through that when he immigrated here. So fast forward to you joined the program, you joined the group coaching program. What did you learn through Immigrant Finance School?
I think one of the biggest things for me for the immigrant finance course is really the community.
Mhm.
When I joined the course, I really didn't know what I was signing up for. Because you don't really know what to do with these things, and I expected more in the sense that I thought it was going to be a sort of chit chat session. Then I found out that there were all these lecture materials, videos that I had to watch beforehand. So that gave some kind of foundation or some kind of
Mhm.
background information. And I found, maybe this is something that's very human. We always feel like we are in a situation by ourselves.
Yeah.
Having that immigrant finance community come together, during our sort of Zoom sessions, I think that was really helpful because you see there are many other people who face similar challenges as you, even though they might not look the same as you, and they're at different stages of that immigrant, so to speak. And that really gave me perspective. Different people sharing different things, talking about their own stories, they're dealing with their own challenges, and some of the solutions. I think that was really insightful in that sense, because you don't get that anywhere on any website, at least the ones that I found, um, about this transition, these different things to look out for. So far there hasn't been any major financial literacy website by an immigrant that talks about his or her experience. So I thought that was the most important thing for me.
Yeah, the group coaching tends to be what people have the best experience with, and being able to form that community. As you mentioned, we have people in different stages of the immigrant experience. So we have people like you who are planning to immigrate to the U.S., we have
Mm,
people who have newly immigrated to the U.S., people who came as young children, have been living in the country their whole life. People who were born in the U.S. as U.S. citizens, and their parents are immigrants, and they're dealing with all of the money stories that are passed on with that, and trying to help
mm,
their parents figure out finances. So we have a whole range. We also had someone whose spouse is an immigrant, and he'd
mm,
grown up in the Midwest his whole life, but he was suddenly facing what it was like to have a family that were refugees and everything they were going through. So I agree that was a really dynamic piece of the
mm.
course. And in terms of what we got into with the topics in the course material and the group coaching, what was some of the most helpful takeaways for you that you learned?
um well, I probably want to go back to what we started with, which was the budgeting rule. I
Mhm.
can't remember the ratio off my head. Is it 5-1 or
Yeah, the
five three
50,
two?
30, 20 rule, the
Yeah,
budgeting.
5-3-2, right? So I thought that was that's something that you kind of know at the back of your head, but getting forcing myself to go through that assignment really helped. I think I shared before that I was trying to balance some of the things, trying to make it into 5-3-2, where I spent a little bit of time, and then I found out that, oh, actually my tax withholding is too high.
Mhm.
So I needed to adjust that with my employer. That was useful, and then trying to look at which of the spending were the highest for me. I
Mhm.
think that was revealing itself. Rent, getting a car. I think these were the top items for my budget, and I think being conscious of that
Mhm.
helps me, going forward, to see, is there a way I can get a discount off my rent, or is it possible for me to get a cheaper car and things like that. So I think forcing yourself to do that budgeting exercise really helps to keep an open mind, and then it really helps you to identify what are the big ticket items in your budget that you might need to come down, things like that. Yep.
Yeah, and it's such an important foundation for going forward into the later stages of personal finance, like investing, increasing income. You're not really going to get anywhere unless you have that budgeting down.
Mm,
Budgeting is then going to apply to further financial goals. Like if you ever start a business, for example, you're going to have to budget for that as well. So it's a really important skill. I'm glad that was helpful. And now, kind of going forward, now that you've completed the course, how do you feel in terms of the next steps in your personal finance journey after this experience?
I guess for me, the kind of next step would be, I don't know, sort of application. getting to the US, and then living my life and seeing how that works out in terms of in my budget,
Mhm.
right? And then doing the necessary goals like setting up savings account, and putting money aside for emergency use and things like that. I think that's why I said earlier that it's a cycle,
Mhm.
or stages. So you sort of move between the stages, like at some point I'll probably be looking more and spending more time looking into, okay, how can I earn some kind of passive income,
Yeah.
to supplement my job. So yeah, I think it's really about the process of going into, when I get there to the US and trying to figure out what works for me and what doesn't work for me. And then for me, I feel obligated, or I feel it is important for me to give back to the community,
Mhm.
to immigrant finance community, and to sort of help others who are having the same issues and challenges as the one that I have.
You've already
Yeah.
started doing that in the Facebook group by sharing really wonderful resources with the community and building the discussion there. So you're going to be able to continue that for a lifetime and also access the material for a lifetime, be able to turn back to it once you are able to immigrate and to go on to the next stages of the building blocks. So we're really grateful for you to be part of the community, Edward, and really be a leader in supporting others and learning these topics. So thank you so much for being part of the group and for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Adina. I think I'm really happy that even after I finish the coaching sessions, I can still go back to the community, either to ask questions or to help others out. I think that's the value of the immigrant finance course. Being able to be part of that community, for me, that's something that's very valuable.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Great.
Adina.